You are listening to a Sustainable World Radio podcast. Sustainable World Radio brings you in-depth interviews, news, and commentary about exciting, creative, and innovative ways of living. Produced in Santa Barbara, California, Sustainable World focuses on positive solutions to environmental challenges, solutions that adhere to the permaculture ethics, earth care, people care, fair share. Are you interested in learning more about permaculture projects around the globe, how to plant a food forest, restorative design, or ethnobotany? Then stay tuned to Sustainable World Radio. I'm Jill Cloutier.
Yes, my name is Gabriel Howearth, and I'm co-director of the Siempre Semillas Foundation in Baja California Sur, in the area in the Cape region, what they call Los Cabos. And we have a botanical garden. One of our main projects is a botanical garden of plant species from mainly dry tropics, but also some wet tropics because we have water. And it's about a mile from the sea. It's a very beautiful setting. And lots of interesting plants that we grow for, of course, food, medicinal, construction, clothing, windbreaks, this sort of thing, for many other functions, and many varieties of each type of species. So that's important to note. Whatever kind of fruit tree you grow many varieties of that fruit, because that's also the preservation work. And rare and endangered of plants that nobody knows what to use them for are high on the list as well. So there's a lot of plants that we've studied on our own conclusions, but we need more lab research to figure out exactly what they are. We fear that they are definitely medicinally been used in other cultures that aren't used as much in this day. Rare and endangered societies, cultures, based on that there's less and less of the plants as well.
And how many plant species do you have on your property at this time?
3,700 plant species. And so it represents plants from focus of native plants, plants of Mexico, but then also plants from other dry tropical regions. If you went across the globe, the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, we focus on plants like that on the drier sides because there are wet sides to all the continents. So, but a lot of stuff from India, a lot of stuff from southern China. That's pretty strong on the list, and stuff, things from Southeast Asia, quite a bit interesting things. Not the wetter parts, but the drier sides. Things from Australia, yes, and stuff from Madagascar, quite a few in terms of going to the south parts. And then some plants from northern Argentina, parts of Brazil, then plants over into Bolivia and Chile as well, and Peru. So all those kind of regions of the world, as well as things from Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, those places. They need a lot of Eastern Africa. So it kind of gives you an idea of the wide source and underexplored in a lot of ways, because a lot of those are not all of those are in hotspots, because a lot of it's been so destroyed. There's not much species into them anymore. Or it's gone into agriculture or wars or these kind of things. So those are major, and ancient civilizations lived in those kind of climates more than a lot of the other climates. Eventually people moved to the colder climates because what happened in the warmer climates. It's largely so in that sense. So that's where core work is and ongoing. And I find a lot of interesting agricultural crops as well. Interesting new crops are often underexplored, underutilized, considering that one time there was 22,000 different edible plants that have been utilized. There's approximately 80,000 altogether. That means there's a little less than 60,000 that haven't been hardly even utilized yet. So it's pretty wide open. So species diversity is really, really key to making the web of life work. Because with that many plants that we got to work on, it comes out that with those many plants, we're working about 150 right now currently. About 20 of them feed the world. And in North America or the United States, it's about 4 crops that feed most of the diet. If you look at all what the food people buy out of the stores, it's not many choices. There are not many food groups, not much diversity.
Gabriel, you are not the typical, I don't even want to call you a gardener, but botanist, where you order your seeds from a catalog. You actually go out and gather things. And I know you probably order from catalogs too, but you actually go out to these biological hotspots and collect. Is it rare and endangered plants or plants that are in danger of dying out?
Oh yes, that's really the focus of the work, because I've done catalogs in the past. I make catalogs usually and sell seeds, But I have bought seeds from or exchanged seeds with other seed botanical gardens or other seed people that instead of going flying all the way there to get a couple seeds. No, but for certain timings I'll go and collect in the wild pretty far away, but knowing that I'm going to get at least 50 different things, some seeds and some seeds to share, especially if they're really rare, and duplicate the collection. So you put some at somebody's garden there, or a botanical garden. You found something new that they hadn't had in their gardens in that region. First off, and it's you duplicate it a couple times already in that region, and then you get some seeds and spread it to bring them to your place, grow them out at our place down in the Baja, in southern Baja, and then also send it to some friends in India, if it's something I collected in Africa, so that it gets duplicated in case with catastrophic climatic conditions that are going on right now. But we have to face these realities. So a botanical garden in New Orleans may not be a great idea anymore. Florida is hard enough, and they have two famous botanical gardens in Florida. The best botanical gardens of tropics in the United States are in Florida and in Hawaii, which get hit by hurricanes often enough. So that's the challenge of these things, and yet that's where the greater diversity sits.
Do you want to talk a bit about diversity and why you feel this is so important?
Diversity is important because it's really it's the fabric of all of life. It's the interrelatedness of different elements being your starting with your macroscopic, your microorganisms, your macroscopic algae and fungi, both your plants, your animals, and your insects, and then your environment, of course, and then you could put people in there to see how that all fits to make all that mechanism work, but it works perfectly fine without our intervention, most 99% of it. So we may best step out of the way and let nature do its best and observe, and maybe we'll learn something instead of trying to attack and conquer. So in terms of biodiversity, so then if you connect the point, the really simple point that algae and plants are what affect the air we breathe. It's really plants of the forest and the jungle that collect and filter our waters, and that's pretty important. And then you've got your microorganisms, and and then you got fungi and algae and all of those factors that really help build our soil and its minerals and help and nitrogen-fixing plants. And then you have the birds and numbers of insects that either help with pollination, bats, or with your so there's the web right there, or you're dealing with insect problems. So using birds. So you really have, if you just bring in a natural habitat around your gardens, you're going to bring in more bird activity, more beneficial insects, and balance out all your things, and then just grow your soil from there, putting in the right amounts of minerals, and so you're building your soil. Then everything else follows suit. The base, and then how to catch your water. I mean, those are your elements. Simple thing is that, but growing the plants and the algae and all those things really help to get the water systems running and collect and filter. So you have to have all that ready to go. As soon as you catch all that water, be ready for it.
When did you start getting involved in working with plants and being interested in plants?
Interest in plants came as soon as I left home, it seemed. It seemed like the first garden I gave an attempt at, I said, this food looked boring once I started buying food. And I wanted organic right away. Something intuitively tell me that I would probably eat a lot more vegetables if it was organic, because my mom tried to force feed me with some vegetables because they tasted like metal, and I didn't know why till I grew it organic. I realized, this is pretty good. I could eat a cauliflower all of a sudden or something like that, So that came on, when I was 18, went off to college and started growing my garden first thing. Had a nice little plot to work with, and then I went. And then when I moved to Santa Barbara for a time, I lived at the very end of the road of Elmwood Beach when I went to UCSB for a time, and grew a garden there at the very end. I had the very last piece of land before I went into that eucalyptus forest out there. I don't know what's left of it now, but that was 38 years ago or something like that. So, but the gardens are really good. I became green jeans really quickly, and I didn't like the cost. It was already expensive to buy. It didn't even taste good, most of it. And the co-op didn't have that much organic in those days. They were still kind of revolutionary a bit, more than growing food. But then all the gardens started happening after that, I know. I started doing some gardening work.
When did the transition occur from the garden to devoting your life to plants and seeds and biodiversity and teaching people about this?
I got really even more motivated. Because it was successful. It was easy. And for me, it made sense to grow food. But the thing that really got me inspired to look at seeds and look at more and more diversity, because in the early days, the food grew good. That was great. But then where was I getting my seeds? Very quickly, I realized that most of the seed sources aren't necessarily organic in the early days. In those days, it was barely anything then in those days. So I said, I got to start learning about growing seeds. So it's right away. And then I went to tour the Monsanto and the Pioneer, the Pioneer seeds and others, and a couple others, and finding out, how chemically they were produced, and they were proud of it. And then the issues came up about genetically altering seeds even back then. So I got wind of that and realized I got to be growing. We got to grow our own seeds, because eventually that's the thing that's going to take over the world, and I could see it, I could sense it. So it became my passion. So that was in the mid-'70s already. So
that was so early, because I remember hearing about genetically modified seeds probably, in the 90s.
Yeah, most people didn't hear about it till the 90s. I was already, and I started a seed company in Oregon. Earthstar Botanicals was my first. I made herbal products, and I did seeds. But organic seeds and organic herbal products were ahead of the curve in those days. It wasn't until the 90s that the herb thing took off, and all my friends that came to learn from me back then, herb farm and Pacific Botanicals, they all have incredible success with growing herbs. So congratulations. And then the seeds finally took off in about the 90s. But in the 70s and the early 80s, it was definitely not as ahead of the curve, but it's good. It got the seed planted for the future.
So you also helped start Seeds of Change. Yeah. And how did that come about?
Well, that's when it became serious. After I've been working with the Pueblo and Hopi and Navajo when I was living in northern New Mexico, and still to this day do some of that. But in northern New Mexico, we did a research plot to see what could grow, collect all the seeds, whatever seeds that the elders wanted to pass on because their kids weren't growing them out, to start really growing some out. At least some of them, they keep the bulk of it and just grow a little bit and trial it out, grow it out. So we did a whole bunch of that. We did about 500 different crops, annual crops, in big research fields. And then we took them to the next level and grew up more seed, and they started growing out seed of a lot of those. So then we went from there with that, and then passed them around to the native people to start getting the importance of that, and created a lot of awareness for that. So that went on for a number of years, and then the elders and I would be able to go into kivas and pray with the elders for the bean dance and do the corn and all that stuff. And there's very beautiful ceremonies that went on. That was a way of charging seeds, it was obvious. So then some of the elders had a council that I was invited to. Very rarely gringos go to these things, or white people. And so anyway, so then they suggested that I start to think about doing my own tribe, my own pueblo, and start doing these principles. I said, okay, that's a good. It was time to move. Felt right, and they can come any time and be part of it, and of a greater tribe. And so went off and searched for a while, and because I liked New Mexico, but I couldn't find anything that was a long enough growing season. In northern New Mexico, the soils are heavy adobe, and water rights were an issue. So I went to southern New Mexico, ended up in the Gila, and it was in the Gila farm. Then in the Gila farm in southwestern part, which comes out the first farm that comes out of the wilderness area. Beautiful, the old Aldo Leopold wilderness area. That was where he first was a park ranger and came up with that idea of such an awe-inspiring park. It's beautiful, sitting on the Mogollon Rim and the Continental Divide. Powerful spot, geomantically one of the more power spots, and that's all the Gila wilderness, the largest wilderness left in the United States. And we had the first farm south of it, and that was later became the Seeds of Change farm. So we started as a community with cottage industries, and I found the land and got it started, and then more people came, that kind of thing. Plant it and they will come. And so then it became that we decided that the seed thing would make the most sense economically and important to do. Meanwhile, we were building stock of that and had a longer growing season, had a bunch of stuff coming. We could grow from Mexico all of a sudden, and stuff from Arizona, and southern Arizona. And, so it was a wide range of most of the tribe's crops at the same time. Continue that tradition. So then hence, that's where Seeds of Change was born in 1987, really. And then we did our first catalog in 88. And so here we are at the 20th anniversary of Seeds of Change. Just recently I was there at the research farm in El Huique, north of Santa Fe. And we did an interview and looking at how to doing the 20th anniversary catalog coming up. So here it's all pretty cool that it's lasted this long and keeps going. And it started out with one farm. We had almost 150 acres on that farm. And now it's many little farms all over, dotted all over the country. And it's all just bought from little farms. Nothing gets bought from big companies at any scale. So, of course, the seeds are a little more expensive than some of the others, but they're all 100% organic. It's what it supports.
So Gabriel, you were working with Seeds of Change, and then where did you go next? What was your next project?
Yes, from Seeds of Change, after I learned pretty much the temperate zone and subtropical world of seeds, and figuring out the marketing of that and what regions and where they get, and all that, and figure out the farmers, decided, okay, I did my work. I'm a pioneering species personality type, that's for sure. And so I liked wanted to learn more of the tropical crops, because I was constantly on my traveling trips. I get invited to places all over the world. I started collecting more tropical seeds, and soon my greenhouse was very full, very expensive to keep heated all winter long in New Mexico. I mean, Santa Barbara's one thing, but here we are in New Mexico at 4,005, which is a low place for New Mexico, but still, it's cold. So I said, okay, for the heating bill of this in 1 year, I can buy some land in Mexico, or somewhere almost anywhere in the world but the States. So that was my time. I did my work. My mother is from Mexico, so it was a draw. I did my colder climate stuff. My dad's from Canada, but so then it was time to go to Mexico. But I went around the world once in that period before I settled on Mexico, because I looked at other places I wanted to be. But for my family and friends, thought it was a little too far to live in India or Bolivia or some Madagascar and all this. So I had some really good projects in Brazil, but. So anyway, I ended up in Mexico, very strategic locations. Dry tropical is the closest really good sample of dry tropics there is to the States, and with pretty ease to get to, especially from California side, or Arizona, straight shot from Phoenix pretty much. So, yeah, we ended up down there in Baja, southern Baja, pretty much on the Tropic of Cancer, on the seaside, the Sea of California, where we have the Botanical Garden.
The dry tropics is not a region that I was that familiar with until I went to your talk.
Right in our region, that's one of the reasons I chose it. I didn't even get to discuss that in today's talk, but being in the southern Baja, there it's an island of diversity there, because it's all the way down to the edge. It's on the Tropic of Cancer. The mountains go up to 7,800 feet, and so there's a lot of diversity there, and it's a biodiversity hotspot. You'll see it on the map, and it's the only one in Baja like that, and so you have a wide range of climatic conditions in a very short distance, and it's called a biosphere preserve there. So that is protected.
Definitely doing the work that you came here to do, it seems, because your mission seems very strong.
Oh, it's really focused. I just believe in it. Being a pioneering species, you go no matter what, and sometimes some people say you should write a lot of grants ahead of time and do all these things. Sometimes you just do them because you know it's important. And sometimes people cut you a good check for doing your work, and at the end of a good presentation, and then I do consultation work to support it no matter what. So I can do that endlessly, but still the real depth of work is the biodiversity preservation work itself, and that usually doesn't pay that good because people don't know what to do with a lot of these what people call utilizable plants. We have a lot of other ones that we use, so that's what we focus on instead of these plants that are just like, well, there's nobody knows what to use them for, so they just disappear by the hillside, whatever.
Plants do have a consciousness. I would think that you were one of their superheroes, because you're actually pulling them out of obscurity and possibly death and helping to preserve them.
Yeah, that's the core of the work, because we're losing them so fast. The rate of extinction is beyond what everybody realizes right now. And so we've lost practically half the species of endemic species and even in the California floristic region in 20 years. So that says something. And it's a vast, incredible place, the California floristic region, province, and it has currently it has about 2,100 endemics, has about 3,500 in all of species, but not all those are endemic. So it's pretty good. It's pretty high. It's the only one listed in the United States as a hotspot. So pretty major. And this region of the Santa Barbara, especially Santa Barbara County, has the best possibility of growing almost anything in the planet. And it has great intersection of 6 distinct ecosystems that all merge there. And so it's a transition zone that way, but it has all of pretty much everything here at one place or another, of most all of the whole California floristic province, except for some of the stuff from up in Oregon and higher grounds and wet forests of the redwoods are challenging to duplicate that. But short of that, you've got quite a range of food crops to grow. Santa Barbara, there's no reason in the world shouldn't be 100% food self-sufficient. You can grow everything here. No reason to ship in anything anymore. Cut off. It's time to put up the embargo, the blockade like they did in Cuba, which is the most food self-sufficient country in the world. Just cut off the aid and get going, get to work.
Gabriel, I know we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to ask you, because I want my listeners to know, you're not talking about getting on an airplane, flying to Madagascar, staying in a resort hotel and walking over and picking some flowers when you're talking about saving these species. Can you give us an idea of what one of your trips is like, or what one has been in the past?
Well, let alone how long it takes to get to a place like Madagascar and then to the islands off of that. It's a major expedition into itself. Allow yourself about 4 days to get to Madagascar.
So you're not lying in like a shea lounge sipping a Mai Tai?
No, I don't even go. No, I go and stay in the grass huts. Go with native people out in the bush more, because to get to a lot of those places, there's no hotels anyway. I don't go there and be an ugly American. Oh, excuse me, a beautiful American getting a suntan at the pool of Madagascar. You don't need to go that far. You can do it in Santa Barbara and go to the beach. But it is a beautiful place. But if you're willing to go out there into the bush and rough it a bit and get to these remote spots, and there's not that many roads, and the food isn't very what you're accustomed to. And so, that's all part of it. So you bring your own, but it only lasts so long, and it all melts or gets eaten by any kind of creature.
But there's a lot of vanilla there, right?
Yeah, you can fast on vanilla. You can eat a lot of vanilla, yeah. No, there's food down there, but the thing is, it's the collection of the plants and all the spiny plants and poisonous plants and crazy things you can bump into when you're collecting. I mean, I'm used to that in Baja. It's a similar. I mean, it has more wetter tropics in places and very dry tropics as well. Madagascar is a unique island. Probably has the greatest endemic plants that there is left, but a lot of it's going though still. It's just, what can you do about it?
Do you find out about these plants from locals? Is that how you kind of know where to go and which ones to save?
Yeah, that's the main thing. Just getting to know the native people. And that takes time, cultivating friendship like that even as well. And then you get guides to help you, because a lot of languages, you really have to get up to speed to speak languages that there's no Berlitz lesson book to learn on, And Swahili isn't exactly easy, even when that's the more common for the whole area, but there's still a bunch of obscure ones. So a lot of times it's really just looking at plants, and then I'll take a picture of it and shake a picture of them, and they'll tell me their uses, and I'll write it down. And sometimes, they usually can spell.
Gabriel, could you estimate how many countries you've visited and how many plants that you have brought back to preserve their seed?
Wow, how many countries have I been to? I've never really counted it. Probably about the neighborhood of about 108 countries. A lot of countries. Yeah, pretty much every country in the Americas I've been to. That doesn't take much. Africa, really, you cover a lot of ground really fast. Africa's got more countries than anybody else, and they've been through a lot of Africa, so that's what bumps it up pretty good. Because then it's India and China and a few countries in Southeast Asia, after that, and little islands that are our own countries, so that helps in the Indian Ocean. But really now my focus is more the dry tropics, although I'm starting to look into wetter tropics, but that's been explored more. That's what I find as I explore that. Oh yeah, this person knows about that. Good. I start pioneering more in the dry tropical regions, and it's where the food has been grown for civilizations for forever. It's the most lived civilizations, so it's also the most devoid of a lot of plant life. I mean, we're like Jordan in a sense, a little more tropical, but they can grow mangoes and papayas there, and so it tells you it doesn't freeze. And so those are civilizations that have lived for a long time, a whole bunch of them, whether it's in Africa or Near East, Far East, India, and so it's between the wars and the constant civilizations that have reduced a lot of the diversity there. So, and because they've stripped it, they have to be sheep and goats and that sort of thing in a lot of those places.
And I think that's one thing I got from your talk, and I've thought about this, but I think a lot of people probably haven't, is that plants are affected by wars. We think of the people there. The plants are really being wiped out too.
Consider the cradle of civilization, and that's what we're bombing. And so, Iraq has an incredible diversity of food crops. I mean, it's really where wheat, they say, started, that's big. Pomegranates are from there. Mulberries are generally from there. Figs from there. Dates from there. There's a whole bunch of dates from that part of the world. Some major crops, actually. And you go into Afghanistan, and the carrots, which, is major. Sesame is major. You don't think of those as, but still, for a lot of people eat a lot of carrots. That's about the third most eaten vegetable in an American diet. Potatoes, I think, are first, and then they throw some head lettuce in there and a tomato, and then you have to say carrot or red cabbage, and that's about it. So carrots are big, and they're from Afghanistan, all of the species there, and we're destroying those, bombing them. You can't go. There's landmines everywhere. And then sesame, and then garbanzos. So the hummus that's such a rave is from Afghanistan. Thank you. Maybe Turkey a little bit, but that's the center of diversity of the cradle of civilizations. A lot of grape varieties from there too. A lot of grapes. So there's wine.
Gabriel, I have 2 more questions, and one is, if someone listening wanted to know what's the thing that they can do to help preserve plants, do you advise them to figure out what are some rare and endangered plants and start growing them, or unusual plants? What would be a first step for people that are very concerned about the loss of biodiversity in the plant world?
If they had a garden before? Okay. But yeah, okay, start with the gardener, and then we'll see if we can backleg that one. Because I talked maybe to more than the basic stuff, but still, if you got to grow your own food first. If you haven't figured out that, if you got a cutesy, nice flower garden, that's nice, but we can grow edible flowers, yes, but that can be part of the landscape. You got to look at the food crops you like to eat, and then go from there, grow more diversity into it. See what else grows easy in your place. If it works, if you keep trying, you can never try a crop just once and say it doesn't work. You got to be willing to try different time of year. You may have had bugs that were bad that year, or some weird climatic conditions. You can never give up the first time. No, that doesn't grow. So, and do enough varieties of each thing that you like so that you see the ones that are stronger. So that becomes a first and most important. So then once you get that down, once you figure out how to feed yourself, then you can feed your local friends, or you have a whole community garden, whatever. But that's the place to start. And so then the basics but year round. Not just everyone grows tomatoes and beans or something and cucumbers, but then not much else, and that's not really growing. That's the start of growing a garden. But then you got to grow your fall greens, your carrots into the winter. You can grow your potatoes more in the fall. I mean, there's a lot. You can grow grains here. There's a lot. You can grow everything you need, and that's where you start. If you don't got that, then you're not going to go too far, because you have to buy it in the store, and it keeps you away, and it's much tastier when you grow it. It's much more minerals in your diet. Nutrition is key. And a good way to learn nutrition is planted in a food pyramid garden, where you plant all your foods in a pyramid triangle shape on the ground, and you put vitamin A foods, B1 foods, B2 foods, C foods, your E foods, and your K foods, and some P foods as well. If you have space, depending on how big you build your pyramid, but those are the main vitamins to consider. Because vitamin D is only really from the sun, or you're going to grow some cod liver oil or something. But above that pyramid, then you put your phosphorus-rich foods, your calcium-rich foods, etc. Your zinc foods. So then you really have a good understanding. And then instead of having to take those tablets, as somebody suggests, you can get more of it because you got year-round growing conditions here. And then if you have a big enough space, that can include all the fruit trees that are, certain ones are higher in vitamin C. There's a bunch of those, but like especially acerola cherries, etc. And then your sweet potatoes, if you can grow those for your vitamin A, that's the highest. And then if you have space for a mango, but you got peaches and nectarines, and those are also high in vitamin A. So you look at it that way, makes it a lot of fun, and it's a healthy way of getting your daily dose of this. You say, if I eat one peach, I get 10,000 mil. You get your daily requirement, or whatever.
And you probably feel so much healthier.
Oh yeah, you better believe it. You don't need any vitamins. Yeah, vibrant.
You don't get health from a jar. You get health from the ground.
Yeah, exactly. Fresh picked every day. That's the very, very best.
I wanted to close with one last question. What do you feel most proud of, or something that you've done in your life that you feel really proud of?
Feel really proud of? That's a good question. Done a lot of things. But setting up a botanical garden in this day and age is not that easy. There's not many new being birthed currently. It's a time when there's a lot of old botanical gardens that are having to be maintained, and that's a challenge into itself. And I'm into that now. I'm into the 10th year, and it's the maintenance work that's intense. It's really good and rewarding work, but we've got to garden that far through all these hurricanes, and no structures lost. We've learned how to be architects in a living system, using all materials that we grew to build our structures within the botanical garden, which is a very unusual situation. And with our 23 to 24 different vegetable gardens, we grow in amongst it for isolation for seed amongst botanical gardens. So you walk the tour of the garden, you get to try free fruits, all organic, not off limits for people to try. We do a tours, and then there's different vegetables in each garden to try, all spread out through the garden. So it's an edible botanical garden, which is a very unusual concept. And raising money for it is not easy in Mexico. It's a little more challenging being in the States. But we do, we're doing pretty good, I tell you, to get it this far along. But once in a while, extra volunteer help is always good, especially after a hurricane. If you get a bad hurricane. yeah, we don't have the fortune of like the famous lady from Lotus Land here, right here in Santa Barbara, that went and married all the different rich dukes of this and prince of that to get all the money that she needed when she got to her next level of the botanical garden. So we don't have a person like that. It's a little different personality type.
What about Prince Charles?
Oh, we can approach him. I got to meet him in Hawaii when I was doing a farm in Hawaii when he came looking for ginger for his ginger snaps. But yes, he could be a possible candidate.
Gabriel, if someone was inspired after hearing this interview to want to help out or apprentice with you, how could they contact you?
We have like we said earlier, we have an NGO, a non-governmental organization, nonprofit called the Siempre Semillas. So our email is, we're working on a new webpage right now because we usually do it right after the hurricane season to decide how to formulate it. But we're planning on doing 3 different permaculture courses, beginning, medium, and advanced, as well as we have our apprentice program that lasts full 6 months, but people do and can get partial credit for even 3 months. But then we had to have 1 month. Different cycles, depends. You just have to email us to our address. That's siempresemillas, SIEMPRESEMILLAS @gmail or at Yahoo. They both work.
That's great. And if someone wanted to donate, they could just email you and then find out how to do it.
Because we do also have a nonprofit foundation in the United States that money can be channeled through to receive tax deductible write-off. So that's the International Community Foundation. So we can get monies channeled directly that way.
Thank you so much. We're here at the Permaculture Convergence. It's been a busy time, so thanks for your time today.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Look forward to meeting you all someday.
You've been listening to a Sustainable World Radio podcast. For more information or to hear our other podcasts or interviews, visit www.sustainableworldradio.com. Sustainable World Radio is produced by Jill Cloutier. Music by Dana Lyons. Thanks for listening.